Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Craig Pera from The Mindful Habit, broadcasting live from my home studio here in beautiful Rockland, California. I want to welcome you all to Sex Afflictions and Porn Addictions. And we're on Facebook Live, we're on YouTube, we're on iTunes. So thank you so much for listening. And today I want to talk about behind the mask of the sexual harasser. I want to know how many of you guys are absolutely freaking out that somebody's going to post something on Facebook that you did. And you can't go for every 5 minutes, somebody is being exposed. Somebody's dark secrets are being exposed. And I just, for my ooglers and my objectifiers, for my men who are listening, who've exploited that power dynamic, this really gives us an incredible opportunity to reflect on, who the men that we want to be. Who do you want to be for your daughter? Who do I want to be for my daughter? What kind of man do I want to be? And, we wear these different masks, and these masks hide our true selves. So the interesting thing, there's this dichotomy, I think, that's really interesting to me. And the guy who's banging the chicks, the sexual harasser, the inappropriate guy at work, right? He's conceited, he's cocky, power hungry, and those things all may be true, but once you start to peel away the layers of the onion and you take off your mask, the mask of the sexual harasser, and by definition, that's someone who exploits that power dynamic. Right? That power dynamic. There's not an equal exchange of power. And so when you and we call those different parts of ourselves in the mindful habit system subpersonalities. And what a subpersonality is, a subpersonality is these separate and distinct parts of ourselves that have competing wants, drives, desires, a different birth story. They have a different origin. They came from different places. Their programming is rooted in different aspects of our past. So using the subpersonality construct, we can examine the sexual harasser, right? And I'll just speak from my own experience, and my conduct, inappropriate touching, groping, hugging, saying rude things, being obnoxious, fishing, right? Making that sexual joke to see who's going to respond. I call that fishing. Right? You make the joke, make the sexually inappropriate joke in a place where sexual jokes are completely inappropriate, like the workplace, and see who's going to respond, which person is going to respond. And so on the outside, these men of power that you've been reading about had these certain reputations. I remember watching Ben Affleck and his buddy there talking about Harvey Weinstein. Oh, he was a badass. He was really mean. He was super tough and he's broken. Right, this is a broken man. These are broken people. And now women are feeling empowered. There feels like this shift that's changing where women are saying, no more, no mas. Like this is bullshit, and they're coming out and they're sharing their stories. And for some men, that's embarrassing, and for some men, that has legal ramifications. You know, I can't begin to tell you how, you know, in my coaching, I have my coaching program where the mindful habit system, where I move men from point A to point B, and I'm very proud of the coaching program. But I've also been called upon for my risk management. I've been assistant general counsel at billion-dollar companies. I help when this goes public for some of my clients. I'm behind the scenes pulling the strings and helping manage, minimize the risk, and helping them get back on track and to be the best person that they can be. And so when you think about this, and I ask you to look, you know, behind the sexual harasser, the oogler and the objectifier, even if you don't define yourself as a sexual harasser, but if you are making inappropriate sexual jokes at work, or using your power dynamic to advance your sexual agenda, you are a sexual harasser. Make no mistake about it. And you're breaking the law. I'll tell you, if you're in litigation, that's the field that you want to be in right now. The combination of porn in the workplace is a very lucrative industry for the lawyers who handle sexual harassment now. And it is ruptured. It has literally just ruptured. And when I work with these men, and these are men of means, men of power, men in some cases with, you know, a public personality, you know, public face, and, you know, ego, right? So much of this is ego, craving power, and how else to demonstrate that power through their accomplishments, through their notches in their belt. That's what I'm talking about, notches in their belt. And, you know, what's so interesting to me is the, you know, perception that these men have of themselves when they start the work and versus when they end. Because when they start the work, it's, you know, they're wearing this mask, and that mask is ego. That mask is power. That mask is, you know, it's interesting because that mask is the American dream. When you look at shows like Mad Men and you know, like why do we get rich? You know, Napoleon Hill calls sex one of the most important drivers of human behavior. It pushes us to, you know, attract women. It's where we get our significance as men. And by the way, once you unmask addict, or you unmask the sexual harasser, behind that mask is insignificance. These are small men. These are small men. When I was engaging in that behavior, I was a small man feeding my insecurities by seeking affirmation in places where I shouldn't be seeking that affirmation. And I think it's just an incredibly insightful time for us to ask ourselves, like, what does the next generation of man look like? You know, who do we want our boys to be? And certainly being raised in a culture of porn. And I don't care what the sex positive people say. The majority of pornography that these kids are watching is either racist, is blurring the consent boundary, taboo. So much of what's out there is videos filmed without people's permission. And that's just a simple reality. And almost this entitlement to be able to take that video. Who are all these men who are uploading videos that they've taken of their girlfriends without their permission? And you hear these stories all over the country. People are, states are trying to catch up legally to get the laws so they can punish people who are publishing these tapes without consent. And so I guess really what I'm trying to say is this presents an opportunity for us as men to look in the mirror and reflect on who we are, right? The oogler, the objectifier, the guy who gets the babes. That's like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like immortalized even in cartoons, right? When the eyes pop out of the head, right? Beep, beep, beep. Like that's how deeply ingrained oogling, objectifying is in our culture. But the days, I think, of exploiting that power dynamic are far from over, but they are certainly, the risk is so much greater to be an asshole, to be an abuser, to be a sexual harasser. So I am so blessed to be in a place where people are reaching out to me and saying, you know what? I'm watching TV and I'm looking at some of the behavior that these guys are doing, the directors, the actors, you know their names. Like just read it. I'm not going to, recite. One guy's got 30 people. Kevin Spacey's got people coming out of the closet now, as he came out of the closet to deflect a sexual assault allegedly perpetuated on a 14-year-old. It's the game is changing, and I guess I want to acknowledge too, it's confusing. It's confusing for me because so we don't oogle and objectify. Women can dress any way they want, and that's not like sending a sexual message. Like I'm going back to the old brain. I'm going back to my old brain and trying to reconcile some of these challenges that we have as men, and there is that natural drive, right? There is that we notice beauty, and I think the question though is, what do we do with it? What do we do with it when we notice? Does it consume us? Does it cause us to engage in behavior that violates our covenant, our pact with our partner? Is it illegal? And for those of you who are listening, I think it's a very, very, very smart time to get in front of this problem and, to conduct a personal risk assessment. Ask yourself, how many people could come forward? And am I prepared if that happens? And listen, not all of you guys are in a place where that's relevant to you, but it doesn't matter what level you're at. You can still work in the mailroom and be guilty of sexual harassment. I think the opportunity for us, again, as men, as we take off that mask of that sexual harasser and see behind that mask the insecurity, its insignificance. Behind the mask of the sexual harasser is insignificance, is small, is weak, pathetic. And the smaller the inner child, the bigger the harasser, almost. And I'm not saying that's true for everybody. You got your narcissists, you got your people who are just beyond broken, but the men that I work with have a heart, and that heart is been in conflict with their sexual ethos. They get great significance from prostitution, right? And let me just say this, right? I have never worked with a client. I want you to think about this. You've heard me say this before if you've been listening to this podcast. I have never worked with a client whose primary problem was quote unquote sex addiction or porn addiction, not a recognized disorder by the American Psychiatric Association, not a recognized disorder by the American Psychiatric Association. And the American Society for Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists are on record saying its members who use that approach violate the standard of care. That means it's negligent, right? So does it mean it has no value? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We all can connect. Many of us listening, you listening, can connect with that compulsive component. But if you're engaging in this behavior and you're one of these guys, right? This is what they do. That's who he is. That's, the risks have become significantly greater. And when you do the work, when you stop and you reflect, you will see behind the mask of that part of yourself is insecurity, is weakness, is smallness. This isn't your best self. This is your weakest self manifesting itself. And when you can address that part of yourself, and if you can, like Napoleon Hill says in chapter 11 of his book, Think Big, transmute that sexual energy into a positive, constructive place, when you've got control over it, when you are honoring it, you can do great, great things. So that's really all I want to say. I think this crisis presents an opportunity for us as men to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, who do we want to be for our partners? Who do we want to be for our kids? Who do we want to be? What does success look like? And I think there's a powerful opportunity here. So I want to thank you guys for listening. Yeah, thank you. I've just been doing an awful lot of reflecting. And if you need help, get it. Take it easy, guys. See you next week.